And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan Metzler here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a little bit of a party-type game. We're going to look at Deception Dice by Tumbling Dice, the name of the company. And this is a game for 3 to 8 players, which definitely takes its inspiration from Liar's Dice. You may have seen it in Pirates of the Caribbean, or maybe you just know the game from, the previous releases. I believe it was either Mattel or Hasbro that released the game. In which players are going to be rolling dice, keeping their own dice secret, and then wagering as to how many different dice there are of different values. The players who are best able to wager and or bluff how many dice there are going to win. And this adds a little bit of a twist to it, giving some different scenarios that happen each round. So real quick, why don't we look at what you get inside this box. We'll go over how the game plays, and then I'll come back here and give you all of my final opinions on it as a whole. So here you see the contents of Deception Dice. And as I said in the intro, this is essentially a Liar's Dice game. This is going to be a game in which you're going to be taking a cup and you're going to put your dice in it. So we see here we have dice cups. Each player is going to have 5 dice. They're going to put their dice in their cup. They're going to roll them, and they're going to keep these dice secret. So essentially, in trying to look at this, I would look underneath my own cup and I'd see what I have. So I have 2 3s and 3 2s, but no one else at the table would know that, and I wouldn't know what everybody else's dice are. So pink would roll their dice, and blue would roll their dice. And no one would know what everybody else has, but they'd know their own dice. Let's say it's a 3-player game. Now, instead of being just like Liar's Dice, Deception Dice adds 2 dice to the game. There are these huge dice here, and these are the Deception Dice. Now, what these do is they have different effects, and at the beginning of each round, the start player, who's going to rotate around in turn order, is going to roll these dice. And essentially, you're rolling the dice, and you're going to do whatever the effects say. So, this double D here in green is typically the good die. This means that I'm going to gain one of my dice back if I have lost one. Well, I haven't, so it's the first round of the game, but that's fine. And this 2 on this die means that we're playing for 2 dice this round. So whoever loses the round is going to lose 2 of their dice. Also on these, there are several different sides. NL means if you roll this, you're not going to get to look at the dice this turn, so you're betting purely on not being able to see what you have. R here is going to mean you play in reverse turn order. CR right here is going to mean that any player can call at any point. It's kind of, I'll show you what that means. And cross out 1 means that 1s are not wild this turn. And the star is going to mean that the person being challenged on a turn gets an extra wild die, or an extra wild when they get challenged. So there's an extra chance that they are correct in their bid. On the red die, you only have a couple different sides. You have 2, which means you're playing for 2 dice, 1, which means you're playing for 1 die, and this DD in red, which means that if you roll this when you're the start player, you're going to lose a die automatically. So at the beginning of the round, you roll these dice. In this case, anybody can call the player instead of just the player to their left, and we're playing for 1 die. At this point, everyone would roll their dice and take a look at what they have. So white looks, they have a 3, and 3 2s. So 2 3s, 3 2s. And they would make a bet, and that bet can be something like, I bet that there are 5 2s out on the table. It's a pretty decent bet because they have 3 to start with. 1s are wild, and there's a good likelihood that one of these players either has a 1 or a 2. Matter of fact, it's likely that both of them have a 1 or a 2. So they bet 5 2s. And now the next player has a choice. They can either up the bet, meaning 6 2s, or they can go to a higher number, same amount of dice. So for example, 5 3s. So maybe blue looks at his dice. He says he has 3 1s. Well, he can bet pretty much anything because these 1s are wild. So let's say he says there are 5 4s. He knows that there's at least 4 4s. 5 4s seems pretty safe. We go to pink. Pink has 4 6s. Well, that seems pretty safe. They're going to go 5 6s. And then it would keep going around in player order. It would come back to 1. They can no longer bet 2s unless they increase the number of 2s. They'd have to go to 6 2s. And so maybe they bet 6 2s. And let's just say at this point, blue doesn't think there's 6 2s, and blue's next in turn order. It actually doesn't matter, because anyone can call in this case. So let's say pink doesn't think there's 6 2s, and pink says, I call. Now, what that means is they think that white has overbid, or overbet. He thinks 6 2s, there's 5 or less 2s underneath these cups, and everyone would reveal their cups, and we would count up how many 2s there are. Well, in this case, there is 1, 2, 3, and then all 1s count 4, 5, 6 2s. White was right on the money with their bet, which means that pink is the loser. since we're playing one die, they lose a die which goes into this area here. And then we would start the next round, and play would pass to the next player, who would roll these dice. We're going to play in reverse this time. We're playing for one die. Everyone would re-roll their dice, and the betting would start again. The game is going to go until all but one player have lost their dice. So essentially one player remains with any dice, and that player is going to be the winner. And there you have Deception Dice. Basically just a Liar's Dice clone with a couple of extra dice thrown in. I really don't have too much to say about it aside from that. Really, it is Liar's Dice, and you roll those 2 extra dice, and maybe you'll randomly lose a die, or maybe you'll randomly gain a die. Maybe you'll be playing for 2 dice this round, or maybe you don't get to look at your dice at all when you're betting. Regardless, it just didn't add that much for me aside or above and beyond the regular Liar's Dice game. It's still fun to play Liar's Dice. I do enjoy Liar's Dice, but Deception Dice just really didn't add any extra bonus for me. So not one I would definitely go out and get. Just kind of a little bit of a novelty if you like those extra dice. But I'd say for the most part, just stick to Liar's Dice.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find the latest board game news at Dicetowernews.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Fun Again Games, the world's best game source. Fun Again Games has over 5,000 games available. Check them out at funagain.com.